The night on Arendor was quiet, but it carried a strange kind of life. The trees glowed faintly in shades of green and blue, their leaves shimmering as if each had a light inside. The air was thick with mist, and every step Kyle took made a soft crunch on the moss-covered ground. He had been exploring the forest for hours, alone, searching for plants with medicinal properties that could help the human colony settle better. At least that was what he told himself. In truth, part of him loved the feeling of being out here, where no one else could see him, where he could think freely. Kale paused beside a cluster of towering ferns. He adjusted the strap of his pack and pulled out a small device, scanning the area. The readings flickered in the dim light, showing signs of life but nothing dangerous. Or so he thought. His eyes moved quickly over the glowing landscape. He was alone, he was sure of it. The colony was several kilometers behind him, tucked away in a valley, safe under the dome that kept the atmosphere filtered. Out here he felt free, but there was also a tension, a sense that something might be watching. A faint rustle made him freeze. His ears, trained to catch the slightest noise, picked up a soft sound behind him. Leaves brushing against each other, maybe a small creature, or perhaps just the wind. Kale shook his head and smiled faintly. "Just your imagination," he muttered. He returned to his scanning, but a strange feeling crawled over his skin. He was being observed. Then he heard it again, a soft, careful step, deliberate but quiet. Kyle's heart skipped a beat. He slowly turned his head, eyes scanning the darkness between the trees. Nothing. Only shadows, long and strange under the bioluminescent glow. He took a cautious step forward. The rustling stopped. Silence. And yet, the feeling remained. Someone or something was there. Kale crouched slightly, gripping his scanning device in one hand and a small plasma torch in the other. He whispered, "Hello?" His voice sounded loud in the quiet forest. Nothing answered. Only the soft dripping of condensation from the glowing leaves. He moved forward carefully, each footstep deliberate. Then he saw her. At first he thought he was imagining it, a trick of the lights or shadows. But no, she was real. A girl, or something like a girl, stood behind a large fern, partially hidden. Her skin shimmered faintly, like it had its own light, and strange patterns ran across her arms and face. Her eyes were large and golden, glowing faintly in the dark. She watched him, her expression unreadable but clearly curious. Kyle froze. He had not expected to see an alien, not here, not in the forest. His mind raced. Should he run? Should he call for backup? But something about her held him in place. She did not seem threatening. In fact, she looked almost as surprised to see him as he was to see her. The girl shifted slightly, stepping back, keeping the fern between them. She made no sound, but her body language suggested caution. Kale slowly lowered his torch, letting the soft glow of the device illuminate the area without making him look like a threat. He knelt slightly to appear smaller. "It's okay," he said softly. "I won't hurt you." He reached out one hand, not too quickly, a simple gesture to show he meant no harm. The girl watched him, tilting her head slightly. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Kale realized she might not speak like humans. For several tense moments, neither moved. Then a faint wind blew through the trees, carrying with it the scent of wet moss and alien flowers. Kale breathed deeply, trying to calm himself. His curiosity was stronger than his fear. Slowly, he spoke again. "Are you alone?" The girl glanced behind Kale. Her eyes widened. He followed her gaze. Nothing appeared at first, just shadows and glowing plants. But then he saw it. A slight movement, the soft shifting of something in the distance. The rustle of leaves, too rhythmic to be the wind, too deliberate to be a small animal. Kale's heart thumped loudly. He was not alone. The girl's expression changed. Fear, surprise, or caution? He could not tell. She moved closer to the fern, pressing herself against it. He noticed now that her movements were graceful, almost silent, as if she had learned to move without disturbing the world around her. He took another cautious step forward, careful not to frighten her. "Who are you?" Kale whispered. "Where do you come from?" The girl did not answer. Instead, she made a small gesture, pointing toward herself and then at him. Kale understood. She was curious about him, just as he was curious about her. But before he could respond further, the sound came again. Footsteps. Closer this time. Heavier. Deliberate. Both of them froze. Kale realized the steps were not human. They were measured, confident, and carried a weight that suggested intelligence. Whoever, or whatever, was coming was watching them. He glanced at the girl. She was alert. Every muscle in her body tense. Her golden eyes darted around the shadows, analyzing. Kyle felt a strange admiration for her. She was small, but she had presence, a kind of awareness that humans rarely saw in their own species. He whispered again, "Stay behind me." The girl hesitated for a moment, but then moved silently to his side, her hand brushing lightly against his arm. The touch was warm, almost reassuring. Kale nodded, feeling a strange connection forming between them. The footsteps grew louder, closer. Shapes began to form in the shadows, tall, thin, and alien, their forms blending with the forest. Kale could not see their faces, only the outline of limbs moving smoothly over the glowing ground. He tightened his grip on the torch and scanning device. "Don't be afraid," he whispered to the girl. "We just need to stay calm. We don't know if they're friendly, but we can handle this." She tilted her head at him as if questioning his words, but her stance relaxed slightly. Kale realized that communication between them was more than words. They were learning each other's intentions through gestures, posture, and small movements. It was strange, almost magical, to feel understood without speaking the same language. A branch snapped nearby. Kale froze. The figures in the shadows paused too, as if sensing the sound. He could feel their eyes on him, even without seeing them clearly. The girl's hand tightened slightly on his arm, and he felt a surge of responsibility. She trusted him, even though she had only just met him. Kyle slowly reached into his pack and pulled out a small holographic projector. He activated it, and a soft, pulsing light appeared in front of them. The figures in the shadows hesitated, moving slightly backward. The light was not threatening, but it announced their presence. The girl looked at the light, then at Kyle. He nodded, and she understood. Together, they stepped forward into the open, showing themselves to the watchers. The figures stopped moving. Kale noticed that they were smaller than he had first imagined, their features hidden, but their attention clearly on him and the girl. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then one of the figures stepped forward, and Kyle could see more clearly. It was humanoid, but clearly not human. Its skin shimmered faintly, like the girl's, but darker. Its eyes glowed softly, observing, assessing. Kyle felt a mixture of fear and awe. The girl stepped slightly in front of him. Protective, but not aggressive. Kale realized she was acting as his guide, showing him that she could be trusted. He felt a strange gratitude toward her. She had chosen to reveal herself, even though it put her at risk. The figure raised a hand slowly, in a gesture Kyle understood as neutral. The girl mirrored it, and Kyle followed suit. The tension in the air seemed to ease slightly, though Kyle knew it was only temporary. They were still very much in danger, or at least still being tested. Kyle took a deep breath. "I'm Kale," he said softly. "I come from the human colony. We mean no harm." The words felt strange in his mouth, almost absurd, but he said them anyway. The figure watched, then nodded slightly. Kale could not tell if it understood him or simply acknowledged the sound of his voice. The girl stepped closer, brushing his arm again. He felt a warmth, a reassurance that he was not alone. Together, they waited, standing in the soft glow of the forest, surrounded by watchers whose intentions remained unknown. And then, in the silence, the footsteps returned. Louder, closer, deliberate. Kyle and the girl froze again. The shadows shifted, revealing a larger figure this time, one that moved with confidence and intelligence. Kyle felt his heart race. The forest was full of life, but now it felt like a trap, a test of courage and trust. The girl's eyes met his. In that moment, Kyle understood something profound. She had been watching humans for a long time, studying them, waiting for someone like him. And now, he was being tested. The footsteps paused directly behind him. Kyle held his breath. He could feel the presence, the weight of intelligence, the quiet power. He could not see who or what it was, but he knew it was observing, judging. He felt a surge of determination. He would not run. He would not hide. Whatever waited in the shadows, he would face it. And beside him, the alien girl, the being who had revealed herself so cautiously, would be his guide through this unknown. The night deepened, the glowing forest stretching endlessly around them, filled with unknown creatures, unknown dangers, and unknown possibilities. Kale tightened his grip on his torch, ready for whatever came next. And then a voice, not human, not fully alien, but a sound that carried meaning, whispered through the trees. "You are not alone." Kyle swallowed hard. The adventure had truly begun. Kyle's heart thudded in his chest as the voice faded into the forest. He could feel the presence behind him, intelligent and alert. The alien girl beside him remained calm, though her golden eyes flicked nervously over the shadows. She had not spoken, not in any way Kale could understand, but her subtle movements communicated something important. Stay calm, be careful, and do not make sudden moves. Kyle nodded slightly, taking a slow breath. "Okay," he whispered. "Let's see what this is about." He took a cautious step forward, holding the small holographic projector up. Its soft blue glow illuminated the path ahead and revealed vague shapes among the trees. The forest seemed alive in a way that humans rarely experienced. The glowing plants, the strange mists, and now these creatures, moving silently, watching. The girl stepped closer to him, her hand brushing lightly against his arm. Kale noticed that she had a way of moving almost invisibly, blending with the shadows. Her presence was calming, and he realized he could trust her, even though he knew almost nothing about her. He had faced dangers in the colony before, but this was different. These were intelligent beings, creatures that could think and observe, and the forest itself seemed like part of their strategy. From the shadows, a figure emerged. It was humanoid but taller than the girl, with dark, iridescent skin and glowing patterns along its arms. Its face was partially hidden, but its eyes shone with intelligence. Kyle felt both fear and awe. This was not a simple predator. This was a being capable of reasoning, possibly as curious about him as he was about them. The girl stepped slightly forward, protective, but not aggressive. Kale understood immediately that she was acting as his bridge, guiding him through this encounter. He raised his hand slowly in a gesture of peace, careful not to appear threatening. The figure studied them for a long moment, then moved closer, speaking in a soft, melodic voice. The words were alien, impossible to understand, but there was a rhythm to them, a cadence that suggested meaning. Kale realized that this being was trying to communicate, not attack. The girl tilted her head, listening carefully. Then she made a gesture toward Kyle, signaling him to respond. Kyle hesitated, unsure how to reply, but he raised his hand again and said slowly, "I am Kyle. I come from the human colony. We mean no harm." His words sounded strange even to himself, spoken into a language that might be meaningless to them, but he hoped the intention mattered more than the words. The figure paused, then nodded slightly. Kyle felt a surge of relief. The presence behind him, what he now understood to be a guardian of the forest, was not hostile. Perhaps they were testing him, judging him, or simply observing. He did not know which, but the tension in the air eased slightly. The girl stepped closer, brushing his arm again. He felt a warmth, a reassurance that he was not alone. Together, they began to move slowly forward, deeper into the glowing forest, following the figure's subtle signals. Kyle kept his eyes open, scanning for danger, but also for clues. The forest was full of life, strange and beautiful, and he could not help but marvel at it even in the midst of fear. As they walked, the girl occasionally pointed at plants, strange glowing flowers, and unusual trees. Kyle tried to understand. Some of these plants were known to the colony. Others were entirely new. The girl seemed to be showing him the world, not just guiding him away from danger. He realized that she was intelligent and curious, and perhaps she wanted him to see what her people considered important. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the forest. Kale froze, and the girl pressed herself against him instinctively. From the shadows, multiple figures emerged this time. Taller, broader, more imposing than the first, their glowing eyes fixed on Kale and the girl. He realized that they had reached the center of the forest, a place where the Guardians gathered. Kale took a slow breath. He knew he could not run. He had faced dangerous animals and hostile humans before, but this was different. These beings were intelligent, capable of observing and judging him. He had to prove that he was not a threat. The girl stepped forward, gesturing toward him. Kyle understood. She was vouching for him, showing the Guardians that he could be trusted. He raised his hands slowly, showing openness and calmness, trying to convey that he meant no harm. The figures circled them slowly, silent except for the soft rustling of leaves. Their glowing eyes studied him carefully, and Kale felt a strange sense of being measured, tested, as if his every thought and intention could be seen. He swallowed hard, determined not to falter. Then one of the Guardians stepped closer, extending a hand, and a small holographic image appeared from its palm. The image was complex, showing symbols and patterns that Kale could not understand, but he sensed meaning. The girl leaned closer, touching the image lightly, and Kale realized she was translating in some way, using gestures and subtle movements. He focused on the patterns, trying to understand. Slowly, a meaning emerged. The Guardians were asking questions, not with words, but with symbols. Why are you here? What do you want? Are you dangerous? Kyle understood that his answers would determine whether he could continue in the forest or be cast out, or worse. Kale thought carefully. He could not lie. Humans had made mistakes before, and he did not want to repeat them here. He raised his hand again and spoke softly. I am here to explore, to learn. I want to understand this world, to protect my colony, but I will not harm your people. I will respect your home. The Guardians paused. The girl leaned slightly closer, nodding. Kyle felt hope. Perhaps they understood the meaning behind his words. Perhaps not entirely, but the intention was clear. They did not step forward aggressively. Instead, they spread slightly, allowing him and the girl to move deeper into the forest. As they walked, Kale noticed small things he had missed before. The way the trees seemed to bend subtly, as if guiding them. The way the glowing plants reacted to their presence. The faint melodic sounds that seemed like music, yet were not. The forest itself was alive, aware, and the girl's people were part of it. He realized that the Guardians were not merely protectors. They were stewards of the forest, and he was intruding into a world far older and more complex than he had imagined. Kyle asked softly, "Who are you? Why are you here?" The girl looked at him, tilting her head. She touched her chest, then gestured toward him, then pointed at the forest. He understood. She had been observing humans for a long time, studying their qualities, and now she was showing him the world from her perspective. A sudden rustle startled him. From the shadows, a small creature emerged, no larger than a dog, with multiple glowing eyes and delicate limbs. It studied them curiously, then scuttled away, disappearing into the mist. Kyle laughed softly. Even here, life thrived in forms beyond imagination. The girl smiled faintly, a rare expression for her kind, and Kyle felt a connection growing. Despite the differences between them, there was understanding. They were allies, at least for now, united in curiosity and courage. They reached a small clearing where the bioluminescent plants glowed brighter, forming a natural circle. In the center, a stone pedestal rose slightly from the ground, covered in alien symbols. Kale stepped closer, examining it. The girl moved beside him, pointing at the symbols. He realized they were a form of communication, ancient and complex, telling the story of her people and their guardianship over the forest. Kyle traced the symbols with his fingers carefully. He felt a sense of awe. Humans had explored many worlds, but nothing like this. The alien girl beside him had been part of this world, guiding him, testing him, showing him that there was more to survival than strength alone. Intelligence, empathy, and courage mattered here as much as in any human colony. Suddenly, a bright light flashed in the distance, and the Guardians appeared again. Kyle and the girl froze. The light was not aggressive, but signaled attention. The Guardians' glowing eyes focused on them. Kyle realized that he and the girl were being evaluated continuously. Every action, every word, every gesture was being watched. The girl stepped slightly in front of him, protective, guiding him silently. Kyle realized that she had chosen to trust him, and he could not betray that trust. He raised his hands slowly, showing calmness and openness. The Guardians watched, their presence immense, their intelligence clear. Then one of them moved forward, extending a glowing hand, and a holographic map appeared, showing paths through the forest, safe areas, and zones marked as dangerous. The girl touched the map, then gestured to Kale. He understood. They were being shown a way forward, a path that would allow them to explore without danger, but only if they followed carefully. Kale nodded slowly. He felt gratitude and respect for the girl and her people. He had entered this forest thinking he was alone, thinking he could explore without understanding the world around him. But now he realized that intelligence, observation, and cooperation were more important than brute strength or curiosity alone. The Guardians stepped back, allowing them to move. Kyle and the girl began to follow the path indicated on the holographic map. As they walked, Kyle felt a growing admiration for the girl. She had observed, judged, and now guided him. Her presence was a bridge between humans and the unknown, a symbol of what could be achieved when different species learned to trust one another. The forest stretched endlessly around them, glowing and alive, filled with mysteries and dangers. But for the first time, Kyle felt not fear, but excitement. The alien girl had shown him that understanding and empathy could open doors to worlds humans had never dreamed of. He knew that his journey had only just begun, but he was not alone anymore. The footsteps that had once haunted him now faded behind, replaced by the steady rhythm of trust and cooperation. The forest was alive, but so was he, and with the alien girl beside him, he felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. And as they disappeared into the glowing trees, Kale realized that the universe was vast, filled with life and intelligence, and that humanity's best qualities, curiosity, courage, and empathy, could shine even in the darkest, most alien places. The glowing forest of Arendor stretched endlessly, but Kale felt a strange sense of direction now. The alien girl walked beside him, silent but alert, her golden eyes scanning every shadow. He had begun to understand her gestures, the subtle way she communicated the world around her. Every step they took was cautious, measured, because the forest was alive in ways he had not yet fully grasped. The path the Guardians had shown them on the holographic map led deeper into the forest, where the plants glowed brighter and the mist became thicker. The air was heavier here, carrying a faint electric charge that made his skin tingle. Strange shapes moved in the corners of his eyes, small creatures with many legs, birds with luminous wings, and vines that seemed to shift slightly as if alive. He kept his hand on his torch, ready to illuminate any danger, but he could sense that the alien girl did not fear them. She seemed to move naturally, as if the forest itself obeyed her presence. Suddenly, a loud snap echoed through the trees. Kale froze, heart pounding, and the girl pressed against him instinctively. He realized that the forest was full of eyes, watching, sensing, evaluating. Whatever followed the noise, it moved quickly. Shadows shifted between the glowing trees, and Kale could see glimpses of creatures larger than him, moving with intelligence and purpose. The girl stepped in front of him, protective, her body tense. Kale understood that she wanted him to trust her instincts. Slowly, he nodded and followed her lead, letting her guide him through the twisting paths of the forest. They moved quietly, using the soft glow of the plants to see without disturbing the natural light. A sudden movement ahead made Kale freeze. Two large creatures emerged from the mist, their forms tall and thin, with elongated limbs and glowing eyes. They moved gracefully, silently, circling them like predators assessing prey. Kyle felt a surge of fear, but the girl did not flinch. She raised a hand subtly, and the creatures stopped, tilting their heads as if recognizing her authority. Kale realized that she had a connection with these beings, a kind of trust that he could not yet comprehend. He felt both awe and gratitude. She had guided him this far, and now she was protecting him. He had thought he was exploring alone, but he now understood that this world required respect, understanding, and intelligence to navigate safely. The girl gestured toward a narrow path between two glowing trees. Kyle followed, careful not to make sudden movements. The creatures watched them for a moment longer, then retreated into the mist, disappearing as silently as they had come. Kale exhaled slowly, his body trembling slightly from the adrenaline. "We are not safe yet," he whispered, though he knew she would not understand the words. She glanced at him, her expression calm, then pointed ahead, signaling that they should continue. They moved deeper into the forest, the mist thickening around them. The glowing plants grew taller, forming natural walls that obscured their vision. Kale realized that the forest itself was a labyrinth, designed to test those who entered. Every step required caution, every movement could alert predators or guardians. Suddenly, the ground beneath them shifted. Kale stumbled, catching himself on a glowing vine. The girl turned, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. He realized she was teaching him, showing him that the forest was alive and that he needed to be aware of its rhythms. As they continued, Kale noticed small signs of intelligence everywhere. Patterns in the plants, markings on stones, and faint symbols glowing on tree trunks. The girl occasionally stopped, touching these symbols, and Kale realized she was communicating with the forest, reading its signals. He tried to mimic her gestures, pointing at symbols and touching the ground gently, and he felt a small sense of connection. Hours seemed to pass as they navigated the forest. The mist thickened, and the glowing light from the plants flickered like a heartbeat. Kyle began to feel fatigue, but he pushed forward, knowing that stopping could be dangerous. The girl's presence gave him courage. She moved with steady confidence, and he followed her silently, trusting her instincts. Suddenly, they reached a clearing. The trees opened up to reveal a large area where the bioluminescent plants glowed intensely, creating a natural dome of light. In the center, a structure rose from the ground, covered in vines and glowing symbols. Kale realized it was an ancient ruin, older than anything humans had built on Arendor. The girl stepped forward, gesturing toward the ruin. Kale followed, his curiosity piqued despite the lingering fear. The symbols on the structure pulsed faintly, responding to their presence. Kale realized that the ruin was not abandoned. It was alive in its own way, interacting with those who approached. As they entered, the air grew warmer, and a soft hum filled the space. The walls of the ruin were covered in alien writing and patterns, telling stories of the forest and its guardians. Kyle ran his fingers over the symbols, feeling a connection to the beings who had built this place. The girl moved beside him, guiding his hand to specific markings. He realized she was showing him the history of her people, teaching him through gestures and touch. Suddenly, a sound echoed through the ruin, a low, resonant hum that made the floor vibrate. Kyle felt a presence behind him and turned slowly. Two figures emerged from the shadows, taller and more imposing than any he had seen before. Their glowing eyes studied him, assessing, judging. The girl stepped forward, protective, and Kyle realized she was acting as his interpreter. He raised his hands slowly, showing calmness and respect. The figures did not move aggressively. Instead, they extended their hands, projecting holographic symbols into the air. The symbols formed patterns that Kale could not fully understand, but he sensed a meaning. They were questioning him, testing his intentions. Kale thought carefully. He could not lie or act hastily. He raised his voice, speaking slowly and clearly. "I am Kale. I come from the human colony. I seek knowledge. I mean no harm. I wish to understand your world and respect your people." The figures paused, studying him. The girl leaned closer, touching the symbols lightly. Kyle realized she was translating his words, conveying their meaning in a way the figures could comprehend. After a tense moment, the figures stepped back slightly, acknowledging him. Kale felt a surge of relief and gratitude. The girl gestured toward a narrow passage at the far end of the ruin. Kale followed, and as they moved, he noticed the forest outside through openings in the walls. Strange creatures moved among the trees, glowing softly in the mist. He realized that the guardians were everywhere, observing, testing, but also protecting the forest and its secrets. As they exited the ruin, a sudden noise made Kale freeze. From the mist, several creatures emerged, larger and more aggressive than any they had seen. Their glowing eyes fixed on them, and Kale felt a surge of fear. The girl stepped forward, standing between him and the creatures. He realized she was ready to defend him, but she did not act aggressively. Instead, she made subtle gestures, and the creatures paused. They tilted their heads, studying her, then slowly backed away, disappearing into the mist. Kyle exhaled, realizing that trust and communication had saved them. He looked at the girl, feeling a deep respect and admiration. She had guided him, protected him, and taught him that intelligence and empathy mattered more than strength or weapons. They continued through the forest, moving carefully along the paths the guardians had indicated. Kyle noticed small details he had missed before. The way the plants reacted to their presence, the faint patterns in the mist, and the subtle movements of creatures in the shadows. He realized that the forest was a living, breathing entity, and the girl's people were its stewards. Hours passed, and the mist began to thin slightly. They reached a small hill overlooking a valley where the human colony lay in the distance. Kale could see the dome of the settlement glowing faintly in the evening light. He felt a mixture of relief and wonder. He had been far from human civilization, yet he had survived, guided by an alien he barely understood. The girl stood beside him, her eyes scanning the valley. Kale realized she was studying the colony, assessing him as part of her observation. He wondered what she thought of humans, of him. He hoped she saw curiosity, courage, and intelligence, qualities that had allowed him to survive the forest and earn her trust. A sudden movement in the distance caught his attention. From the shadows of the forest, figures emerged, more guardians, observing them. Kale understood that the girl had led him through a test, and now the final evaluation was beginning. The guardians' glowing eyes followed every step, every gesture, every movement. Kyle took a deep breath, feeling both fear and determination. He knew that the outcome of this encounter could shape humanity's relationship with this world. He could fail, or he could succeed and earn the respect of beings far older and wiser than humans. The girl touched his arm gently, signaling him to move forward. Kyle nodded, feeling a surge of confidence. He had learned from her, from the forest, and from the Guardians. He would face this challenge not with weapons or aggression, but with intelligence, empathy, and courage, the qualities that defined humanity at its best. As they approached the valley's edge, the Guardians stepped aside slightly, allowing them to descend. Kyle felt a mixture of awe and gratitude. He had entered the forest alone, uncertain and afraid, but he had learned that survival required more than strength. It required understanding, trust, and the ability to see the world through the eyes of others. The girl glanced at him, her expression unreadable, yet he felt a connection. They were allies now, united by the challenges they had faced and the lessons they had learned. Kyle realized that he had gained not only a guide, but a friend, and a bridge between humans and the intelligent life of Arendor. As they moved toward the valley, Kyle felt the forest around them shifting, almost acknowledging their passage. The glowing plants dimmed slightly, the mist thinned, and the creatures retreated into the shadows. The forest had tested him, and he had survived. He looked at the girl, grateful for her guidance and presence. Together, they would continue to explore, to learn, and to understand each other's worlds. The Guardians had not only observed him, they had taught him, through challenge and patience, that intelligence, empathy, and courage could overcome fear and uncertainty. Kyle knew that the journey was far from over. The forest still held mysteries, dangers, and wonders that humans had never imagined. But for the first time, he felt confident. He was not alone, and with the alien girl beside him, he was ready to face whatever lay ahead. The night deepened, and the valley stretched below them, glowing faintly under the stars. Kale felt a surge of hope. Humanity had survived many challenges, but here, in the forest of Arendor, he understood that true survival required more than adaptation. It required connection, trust, and the willingness to learn from those who were different. And as they descended into the valley together, Kale realized that the universe was vast, full of life and intelligence, and that humanity's best qualities, courage, curiosity, and empathy, could shine even in the most alien and challenging places. The valley stretched before Kale and the alien girl, a soft glow marking the distant human colony. Kyle could see the protective dome and the tiny structures that had been his home for so long, yet here he felt far from safety. The forest of Arendor had tested him in ways he could not have imagined, and now the final challenge awaited. The alien girl moved beside him, silent but alert. Her golden eyes scanned the surroundings, observing every shadow and movement. Kale realized that she was preparing him, teaching him to face whatever intelligence awaited them. He had learned to trust her instincts, but now the true test would come not from fear or danger, but from judgment. Ahead, the forest opened to a clearing filled with glowing stones, arranged in a pattern that radiated energy. Figures emerged from the shadows, tall and imposing, their glowing eyes fixed on Kyle. These were the elders of the forest, beings of immense intelligence, guardians of Arendor, and the ultimate arbiters of the alien girl's world. Kyle felt awe, but also determination. The girl stepped slightly forward, gesturing toward Kale. He understood. She was introducing him, vouching for him. He raised his hands slowly, showing openness and calm. The elders did not move aggressively. Instead, they observed, projecting holographic symbols into the air. Kale studied the symbols, realizing they formed complex puzzles and moral challenges. The elders were testing his reasoning, empathy, and creativity. He knew that brute force would not help him. He needed to demonstrate humanity's best qualities. The first puzzle required him to align patterns of light to restore harmony in the projected image. Kyle focused, noticing subtle relationships between shapes and colors. Using both logic and intuition, he carefully manipulated the symbols. The elders watched silently, their eyes glowing faintly. When the pattern finally aligned perfectly, a soft hum of approval resonated through the clearing. The next challenge was more difficult. A holographic scene appeared, showing a conflict between two alien species. Kyle had to make a decision, choose one side or find a solution that would protect both. He hesitated, recognizing that this was a test of empathy, not strategy. He thought carefully, imagining the perspectives of both sides. Then he proposed a solution that shared resources fairly, minimized harm, and allowed both species to thrive. The elders paused, studying him. Then one of them extended a hand, projecting symbols of gratitude. Kyle realized that they recognized his wisdom and compassion. The alien girl touched the symbols lightly, her gesture conveying pride. He had passed the first stage of their test. The final challenge approached. A projection formed, showing the human colony in danger. Kyle understood that he needed to act quickly. He could see potential threats, natural disasters, alien predators, and environmental hazards. Using the knowledge he had gained from the forest and guidance from the alien girl, he devised a plan. He instructed the projection on how to protect the colony using early warnings, defenses, and careful planning. The elders observed silently as he worked, their glowing eyes studying his choices and reasoning. Kale felt pressure, but also clarity. He had learned from the alien girl that intelligence and empathy mattered more than fear or aggression. By applying these principles, he was able to create a solution that ensured the safety of both humans and aliens. When he finished, the projections faded, leaving the clearing bathed in soft light. The elders stepped forward, their gestures now welcoming. Kale realized that he had passed their test, not through strength or dominance, but through courage, reasoning, and the ability to understand and respect other beings. The alien girl smiled faintly, a rare expression that conveyed approval and trust. Kyle felt a deep sense of gratitude. He had entered this forest alone, uncertain and afraid, but he had emerged with new knowledge, alliances, and a profound respect for the intelligence and empathy that defined both species. The elders extended their hands toward Kyle and the girl, projecting symbols that he understood as acceptance and alliance. Humanity had earned a place of trust in this alien world. Kyle felt the weight of this responsibility, but also the excitement of possibility. As they left the clearing, the forest seemed to respond. The glowing plants shone brighter, the mist lifted slightly, and small creatures emerged, observing them with curiosity rather than caution. Kale realized that the forest had recognized his success, acknowledging the bond he had formed with the alien girl and the respect he had shown for the Guardians. They walked together toward the edge of the forest, where the valley opened to reveal the human colony in the distance. Kyle felt a mixture of relief and wonder. He had survived the challenges of Arendor not alone, but with guidance, trust, and understanding. The alien girl had become his ally, friend, and teacher, showing him that intelligence, empathy, and courage were the keys to survival and coexistence. As they approached the colony, Kale could see the familiar structures, yet he felt that everything had changed. He had experienced the depth of alien intelligence, faced challenges that tested his mind and spirit, and discovered that humanity's best qualities could shine even in the most alien environments. The alien girl stopped at the edge of the forest, her golden eyes scanning the colony. She gestured toward Kyle, then pointed at herself, and finally at the humans in the distance. He understood. She was introducing him, showing that humans could coexist with her people, that cooperation and understanding were possible. Kyle smiled, feeling a sense of pride and hope. He had learned lessons that humans could carry forward, not just for survival, but for growth, empathy, and exploration. He realized that the universe was vast, full of life and intelligence, and that humans, when guided by courage, curiosity, and compassion, could make their mark. He turned to the alien girl, grateful for her guidance. "Thank you," he said softly, though he knew words might not fully convey his meaning. She nodded, a small smile on her face, and gestured toward the colony once more. Together, they descended into the valley. The colony's lights shimmered under the evening sky, and Kyle knew that he had a story to tell, one of exploration, trust, and the power of understanding. Humans had faced challenges before, but here, in the alien forests of Arendor, they had proven that their best qualities could shine in the darkest and most unknown places. The guardians of the forest watched from the shadows, silent but approving. The alien girl stayed close, guiding Kyle as they walked. He realized that this was just the beginning of a larger journey, one where humans and aliens could learn from each other, explore together, and discover the vast mysteries of the universe. Kale looked up at the stars, glowing faintly above the valley. He felt a sense of connection, not just to the alien girl or the Guardians, but to the universe itself. Humanity had survived, not by dominance or aggression, but by intelligence, empathy, and courage. And here, on Arendor, those qualities had been recognized, tested, and proven. As they reached the edge of the colony, Kale knew that life would never be the same. He had seen the best of humanity reflected in his own actions and in the trust that the alien girl had shown him. The universe was full of challenges, but he now understood that humans could meet them and even thrive when guided by their greatest strengths. The alien girl paused, looking back at the forest. Kale knew that she would return to her people, but their connection would endure. They had faced the unknown together, learned from one another, and forged a bond that transcended language, species, and culture. Kale turned toward the colony, ready to share what he had learned. He would tell the story of the forest, of the Guardians, and of the alien girl who had shown him that understanding, empathy, and courage could bridge even the widest divides. Humanity's best qualities had shone brightly, and he knew that this was only the beginning of a new chapter, one where humans could explore, learn, and connect with the stars in ways they had never imagined. As the night settled over the valley, Kale felt a deep sense of peace. The challenges had been immense, but he had grown, learned, and survived. And beside him, the alien girl, a guide, a friend, and a symbol of trust, walked silently, reminding him that even in the vast unknown, humanity's best qualities could shine, lighting the way forward into a universe filled with possibility. The stars above twinkled, vast and eternal, and Kale knew that whatever came next, humanity would face it with courage, intelligence, and empathy. The forest of Arendor had tested him, the alien girl had guided him, and the Guardians had judged him. Now he was ready, not just to survive, but to thrive, to explore, and to show that humanity, at its best, could shine in the darkest corners of the universe.